Logan sat on the couch, flipping through the channels, but he wasn't really watching. His mind was heavy with suspicion. His wife, Amber, had been acting distant lately. She was coming home late, often with flimsy excuses. Logan couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. As he heard her footsteps approaching, he braced himself for what was about to come. Amber walked into the living room, her demeanor unusually cheerful. Logan looked, his eyes narrowing. "Where are you off to now?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Babe," Amber said, almost too casually. "Chris is waiting outside. Let's go, and I'll introduce you to him." Logan's blood boiled instantly. He clenched his fists, trying to keep his anger in check. "Chris? Who the hell is Chris?" he demanded. Amber looked unfazed. "Just a friend," she said with a shrug, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of guilt. Logan stood up, his height and presence suddenly towering over Amber. "If he comes within a meter of this house, I'll break his jaw. And if you leave with him now, you'll never be welcome back here, and you'll be paying for it forever." His voice was a low growl, filled with barely contained rage. Amber's eyes widened for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. She straightened her shoulders and met his gaze defiantly. "I'm going, Logan. You can't control me like a looser," she said, her voice cold and final. Logan's heart pounded as he watched Amber turn and walk out the door. He wanted to shout, to stop her, but his pride kept him rooted to the spot. The door slammed shut behind her, and Logan felt a wave of fury and betrayal crash over him. He walked to the window and saw a sleek black car idling at the curb. A tall man leaned against it, smoking a cigarette. "Chris?" Logan glared at him, his fists still clenched. He considered storming out there, confronting the man, but he knew it wouldn't solve anything. Instead, he took a deep breath and stepped back from the window. Amber felt a rush of adrenaline as she walked towards Chris's car. The sleek black vehicle gleamed under the streetlights, a stark contrast to the mundane life she was leaving behind. The excitement of the forbidden affair had clouded her judgment, making her oblivious to the consequences that lay ahead. Chris opened the car door for her, flashing a confident smile. "Ready for a wild night to remember?" he asked. Amber nodded, sliding into the passenger seat. "Let's go and have fun. Can't wait to see your Johnson," she replied, her voice tinged with anticipation. They drove through the city, the lights blurring past them. Chris turned on the stereo and upbeat music filled the car. Amber glanced at him, admiring his chiseled features and easy demeanor. It was a stark contrast to the tension she felt at home with Logan. Chris parked the car in front of an upscale hotel. He handed the keys to the valet and led Amber inside. The lobby was opulent, with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Amber's heels clicked against the polished surface as they made their way to the elevator. In the elevator, Chris pulled her clothes, his hand resting on her waist. Amber's heart raised as the elevator ascended. When they reached their floor, Chris led her to a suite at the end of the corridor. He swiped the key card, and the door swung open to reveal a luxurious room with a king-sized bed, plush furnishings, and a panoramic view of the city. Chris wasted no time. He poured them both a glass of champagne from the bottle, chilling in a silver bucket. They clinked glasses, and Amber took a sip, savoring the bubbles dancing on her tongue. Chris set his glass down and pulled her into a passionate kiss. The world outside ceased to exist as they indulged in a wild, passionate evening. They ordered room service, enjoying a lavish dinner in the privacy of their suite. The night was filled with laughter, whispered secrets, and stolen glances. For a moment, Amber forgot about Logan and the life she was risking. She reveled in the freedom and excitement that Chris brought into her life. As the night progressed, they moved to the bedroom. The moonlight streamed through the windows, casting a soft glow on their entwined bodies. Amber felt a mix of exhilaration and guilt, but she pushed the latter aside, focusing on the present. Hours passed, and they eventually drifted off to sleep, wrapped in each other's arms. But the thrill of the night was short-lived. Amber woke up to the harsh light of dawn filtering through the curtains. The reality of her actions began to sink in. Chris was still asleep, his arm draped over her. Amber carefully disentangled herself and slipped out of bed. She walked to the window, staring out at the city below. Her mind raced with thoughts of Logan and the life she had jeopardized. The house felt empty without Amber. but Logan knew he had to move on. He started by gathering all her belongings, methodically packing them into boxes, clothes, shoes, books, and personal items. Everything went in. He labeled each box with her name, stacking them neatly in the garage. The process was mechanical, his focus solely on erasing her presence from his life. Logan changed the locks on the front and back doors. He also blocked her number on his phone, ensuring she couldn't reach him. The betrayal stung, but he was determined to take control of his life. Over the next few days, Logan spent hours in his home office, thinking about his next move. He was not going to let Amber get away with what she had done. Revenge was on his mind, but it had to be calculated and precise. Logan made a list of everything he needed to do. At the top of the list was contacting his lawyer, Lucas. He picked up the phone and dialed Lucas's number. "I need to see you," Logan said when Lucas answered. "It's urgent." The next morning, Logan met with Lucas in his office. They sat across from each other, a thick file of documents between them. "Tell me everything," Lucas said. Logan recounted the events of the past few weeks, detailing Amber's infidelity and her decision to leave with Chris. Lucas listened, taking notes, and occasionally asking questions. When Logan finished, Lucas leaned back in his chair, considering the information. "We need to make sure she doesn't get a single penny," Chris said firmly. Lucas nodded, understanding the gravity of Logan's resolve. "We can gather evidence of her infidelity. It'll strengthen your case and ensure she pays for her actions. I've already set up a surveillance system in the house. I'm documented everything." Chris relpied. Lucas leaned forward, a serious expression on his face. "Good. We'll need detailed evidence. Photos, videos, any proof of her meetings with Chris. Financial records, too." If she's been spending money on him, Logan felt a sense of grim satisfaction. The more evidence he gathered, the more determined he became to see this through. He was not just fighting for himself. He was fighting to ensure Amber faced the consequences of her betrayal. Amber returned to the house a week later after spending the fun time with her lover, confident she could smooth things over. She parked her car in the driveway and walked to the front door, expecting to see Logan inside. She was met with locked doors and silence. Frustrated, she banged on the door. "Logan, let me in." Logan appeared in the window, calm and collected. His face was expressionless, giving nothing away. "You made your choice, Amber. Now live with it. Why you came back to a loser again?" Amber's eyes widened. "Please, Logan, I was wrong. Let me explain." Logan shook his head. "There's nothing to explain. You've lost everything." Amber's frustration turned to desperation. She tried the door handle again, shaking it forcefully. "Logan, please, just let me in. We can talk about this." Logan stepped away from the window, disappearing from view. Amber's heart sank. She walked around to the back of the house, hoping to find another way in. Every door, every window was locked. She pounded on the back door, her knuckles turning red. "Logan, please!" Inside, Logan watched her through the security cameras. He felt a grim satisfaction seeing her desperation, but kept his expression neutral. He turned away from the monitors and walked to his study, closing the door behind him. He had no intention of letting her back into his life. Amber circled the house, looking for any sign of weakness. She found none. Exhausted, she sank down on the front steps, her back against the door. She tried calling Logan, but her number was blocked. She sent texts, pleading for a chance to explain, but there was no response. As the hours passed, Amber's desperation grew. She tried calling friends, but word had already spread about her infidelity. No one was willing to help, even her lover. She was alone. And the reality of her situation began to sink in. She had nowhere to go. Amber left the house and drove aimlessly around the city. She thought about going to Chris, but their last encounter had been cold. He had made it clear he wanted nothing more to do with her once she had no home to offer. The realization hit her hard. She had thrown everything away for nothing. That evening, she returned to the house, hoping Logan had calmed down. She stood in the driveway, staring at the darkened windows. She tried knocking again, but there was no answer. Defeated, she turned to leave, but then she saw a note taped to the door. The note was brief and to the point. "Amber, your belongings are in the garage. Take them and go. My lawyer will send you divorced papers. Let's meet in the court." She walked to the garage and found the boxes neatly stacked, just as Logan had left them. She opened one, seeing her clothes, shoes, and personal items. It was everything she owned, packed up and ready for her to take away. The finality of it hit her hard. Amber loaded the boxes into her car, tears streaming down her face. She drove to a nearby motel, checked in, and carried her belongings to the small, impersonal room. She sat on the bed, surrounded by boxes, and stared at the walls. The reality of her situation was undeniable. She had lost her home, her husband, and her dignity. The next morning, Amber called her lawyer. She needed advice on what to do next. The lawyer listened patiently and then explained that Logan had a strong case against her. The evidence of her infidelity was overwhelming. She had no grounds to contest the divorce or demand any settlement. Amber felt numb as she hung up the phone. She had nothing left, no home, no money, no future. She spent the next few days moving from motel to motel, unable to find a permanent place to stay. She tried reaching out to old friends, but they had all heard about her betrayal and wanted nothing to do with her. A week later, Amber stood outside the house again. She stared at the locked doors, the silent windows. She had lost everything, and it was all her fault. She turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing on the empty street. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. The courtroom buzzed with activity as the divorce proceedings commenced. Logan and Amber were seated on opposite sides of the room. Logan had his lawyer Lucas by his side, while Amber was accompanied by her legal team. The tension in the air was palpable as both sides prepared for the confrontation. Lucas started by presenting Logan's case. He methodically laid out the evidence: surveillance footage of Amber's meetings with Chris, financial records documenting her expenditures on the affair, and text messages that confirmed the nature of her relationship with Chris. Each piece of evidence was displayed on large screens in the courtroom for all to see. The footage was shown first. The room fell silent as the video played, capturing Amber leaving the house at night and meeting Chris at various locations. The recordings were clear, with timestamps and location data reinforcing the narrative of her infidelity. The judge, a stern-looking man with years of experience, scrutinized the evidence carefully. Lucas addressed the judge directly. "Your Honor, this footage clearly demonstrates that Amber violated the trust of her marriage. It shows her engaging in a prolonged affair, which has had significant consequences for my client." Amber's lawyer attempted to counter the evidence, arguing that Logan's presentation was biased and aimed at tarnishing Amber's character. However, the counter-arguments lacked substance compared to the thorough documentation provided by Logan. The judge listened, but remained unmoved, focusing on the concrete evidence. Next, Lucas presented the financial records. He highlighted transactions that indicated Amber's spending on Chris, expensive dinners, hotel stays, and gifts. He provided a detailed analysis of these expenditures, showing how they had been funded from the joint account. Logan's lawyer also presented bank statements and credit card bills, demonstrating how Amber's spending on Chris had depleted their finances. The judge examined these documents closely, noting the discrepancy between Amber's claims and the reality depicted in the records. Amber took the stand to plead her case. She tried to explain her actions, arguing that her affair was a mistake and that she was willing to make amends. Despite her attempts to appeal to the judge's sense of fairness, her explanations were met with skepticism. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and her arguments lacked credibility. Lucas cross-examined Amber, questioning her about the timing of her meetings with Chris and her financial transactions. Each question was precise, aimed at dismantling her defense and highlighting the extent of her betrayal. As the hearings progressed, the judge remained focused on the facts. The evidence presented by Logan and Lucas was clear and methodical. Amber's attempts to argue or plead were insufficient against the comprehensive documentation of her infidelity. After several days of hearings, the judge made his ruling. He concluded that Amber's actions had breached the marital contract and that she was entitled to no financial settlement. Logan's meticulous preparation and the strength of the evidence had secured a decisive victory. Amber's legal team advised her on the next steps, but the outcome was bleak. She was left with nothing. Her claims of unfair treatment overshadowed by the undeniable proof of her misconduct. The judge's ruling was final, and the financial and personal consequences for Amber were severe. Logan, meanwhile, was relieved. The battle had been grueling, but his thorough preparation had paid off. He had secured a favorable outcome, ensuring that Amber's betrayal was met with the consequences she deserved. The legal proceedings had been harsh, but they were a necessary step in regaining control of his life. As the courtroom emptied, Logan and Lucas reviewed the case one last time. They discussed the implications of the ruling and the steps needed to finalize the divorce. Logan felt a sense of closure as he prepared to move on from the ordeal. Amber left the courthouse, her future uncertain. The legal battle had stripped her of everything she had once taken for granted. She faced a challenging road ahead, marked by the repercussions of her actions and the finality of the judge's decision. The courtroom doors closed behind her, marking the end of a chapter in the legal battle. For Logan, the victory was a crucial step towards rebuilding his life, free from the shadows of betrayal and deception. With the legal battle behind him, Logan turned his focus to rebuilding his life. He had moved into a new house, strategically chosen to be far from the memories and shadows of his past. The new place was modern and spacious, featuring a clean slate that symbolized his fresh start. The house had an open-plan design with large windows, letting in plenty of natural light. Logan took pleasure in setting up the space, carefully selecting furniture and decor that reflected his tastes and preferences. He spent his weekends working on various home improvement projects, from painting walls to arranging his extensive collection of books and artwork. Each task was a way to mark his new beginning and create a space that was entirely his own. Logan also invested time in his hobbies. He had always enjoyed woodworking, so he set up a small workshop in the garage. He spent hours crafting custom furniture and intricate wood designs. His creations, ranging from elegant coffee tables to intricate picture frames, became both a creative outlet and a source of satisfaction. In addition to his personal projects, Logan reconnected with friends and family. He hosted gatherings and dinners, catching up with people he had lost touch with during his marriage. These interactions provided a sense of normalcy and allowed him to rebuild the social connections that had diminished over the years. He took up hiking with old friends, exploring new trails and enjoying the outdoors. Each outing was a reminder of the freedom and possibilities that lay ahead. Logan also focused on his career, taking on new challenges and opportunities. He pursued professional development courses and networked within his industry. His hard work and renewed energy paid off, resulting in a promotion and increased recognition at work. He relished the newfound sense of achievement and the positive trajectory of his career. Meanwhile, Amber faced a starkly different reality. The excitement of her affair with Chris had quickly dissipated once she was left to face the consequences. Chris, who had initially been enthusiastic about the affair, showed no interest in a long-term relationship. As soon as the affair lost its allure, Chris distanced himself from Amber, leaving her without the support she had anticipated. Amber's financial situation deteriorated further. She struggled to find stable employment as her reputation had been tarnished by the public nature of her affair. Her attempts to secure a new job were met with resistance and skepticism from potential employers. The job market proved challenging, and her financial reserves dwindled as she faced mounting bills and expenses. The loss of her social circle was another blow. Friends who had once been close distanced themselves, unwilling to associate with her after the scandal. The isolation she experienced was palpable as she found herself alone and without the support network she had taken for granted. Desperate for stability, Amber moved into a small apartment in a less desirable part of town. The apartment was modest, with outdated furnishings and minimal amenities. It was a far cry from the life she had enjoyed before the affair, a stark reminder of her current predicament. Despite her efforts to reach out to Logan, she received no response. Her attempts to contact him were ignored, leaving her without the possibility of reconciliation. The legal battle had severed their ties completely, and Logan's decision to cut off communication was final. Amber's daily routine became monotonous. She spent her days searching for job opportunities and her nights alone in her apartment. The excitement and thrill she had once experienced with Chris were replaced by the stark reality of her situation. The freedom and allure of the affair had quickly given way to the harsh consequences of her actions. As time passed, the weight of her decision settled heavily on Amber. Her financial instability, social isolation, and lack of direction became a daily struggle. She had hoped for a fresh start with Chris, but instead found herself grappling with the repercussions of her choices. The life she had envisioned was now a distant dream, replaced by a reality marked by hardship and solitude. Logan, on the other hand, continued to thrive in his new life. The final revenge was not in any overt gesture, but in the quiet, unremarkable success and satisfaction he found in rebuilding his life. The contrast between his renewed happiness and Amber's ongoing struggles was a testament to the consequences of their actions. Logan's focus remained on enjoying his freedom and forging ahead, leaving behind the remnants of a tumultuous past. Amber sat on the worn-out sofa in her small apartment, staring blankly at the flickering fluorescent light above. The room was sparsely furnished, a small table with a single chair, a basic bed, and a few boxes stacked in the corner. The once vibrant colors of her life had dimmed, replaced by the stark reality of her current situation. She picked up a photo frame from the coffee table, dusted off the glass, and looked at a picture of herself with Logan from happier times. The image seemed surreal now, a stark reminder of the life she had willingly discarded. The picture had been taken during a vacation where they had appeared carefree and content. That version of her life felt like a lifetime ago. Overshadowed by the decisions she had made in the past year, Amber's apartment was filled with remnants of her former life. Boxes contained her belongings, clothes she hadn't worn in months, and items she no longer had the space for. The financial strain had forced her to downsize significantly. Each item she unpacked served as a reminder of her previous affluence and the drastic fall from grace she had experienced. She tried to keep herself occupied, but the monotony of her routine was overwhelming. Every day began the same way, a quick breakfast of instant coffee and cereal, followed by hours of job, searching on her outdated laptop. Despite numerous applications and several interviews, job offers were scarce. The competitive job market, combined with the stain of her scandalous past, made it nearly impossible to secure stable employment. In the evenings, she would walk through the neighborhood to clear her mind, but the surroundings offered little solace. The streets were quiet and unremarkable, a stark contrast to the vibrant, bustling areas she used to frequent. The local diner where she sometimes stopped for a meal had an old-fashioned charm, but it was not a place where she could escape her thoughts. As she walked, Amber passed by the cafe where she had once met Chris. The memory of their passionate conversations and stolen moments seemed distant and out of reach. Chris had been an escape, a way to feel desired and alive, but his departure had left her with an empty feeling. She had hoped for a new beginning with him, but it turned out to be a mirage. His absence was a constant reminder of the fleeting nature of her decisions. Amber found herself revisiting the wild night with Chris in her mind. He already fled the country. She had believed it would lead to a new chapter in her life, filled with excitement and fulfillment. Instead, it had marked the beginning of her downward spiral. The fleeting thrill of the affair had been replaced by the cold reality of abandonment. Chris had vanished when Amber needed him most, leaving her without the support she had anticipated. The apartment's sparse furnishings did little to comfort her. She tried to decorate with a few personal touches, some photos, a couple of small plants, and inexpensive artwork, yet nothing seemed to fill the void left by her previous life. The contrast between her current surroundings and her past opulence was striking. Amber spent her evenings reflecting on the choices that led her here. She replayed conversations with Logan, her justification for the affair, and the moments when she had rationalized her actions. She realized how those decisions had led to her present predicament, the loss of her marriage, her financial stability, and her social connections. Occasionally, she would attempt to reach out to friends from her past, but the responses were curt or non-existent. She had alienated those who had once been close, and rebuilding those relationships seemed improbable. The isolation she faced was a direct consequence of the choices she had made. In her solitude, Amber found herself questioning her decisions and their repercussions. The life she had envisioned with Chris had never materialized, and the reality was far from the excitement she had sought. The consequences of her actions were starkly evident in her diminished circumstances and the lack of support from those around her. Each day in her apartment served as a reminder of her choices, as well as a lesson in their consequences. Amber had hoped to escape her previous life, But in doing so, she had created a new set of challenges and hardships. As she sat alone, she understood the magnitude of her regrets. Regret for leaving Logan, for indulging in the affair, and for the choices that had led to her current state of solitude. Years had passed since the tumultuous events that had marked the end of Logan's marriage. The initial aftermath of the divorce had been a period of adjustment, but Logan had used it as an opportunity to rebuild his life. He had moved into a new house, found solace in his hobbies, and rebuilt his professional and social networks. Logan's new home was in a quiet neighborhood, surrounded by lush greenery and well-maintained properties. The house itself was a modern design, with an open layout and large windows that let in ample natural light. Logan had taken great care in making the space his own, from installing custom cabinetry in the kitchen to creating a serene outdoor space with a small garden and a comfortable patio area. As time went on, Logan continued to focus on his interests. His woodworking skills had developed significantly, and he had even started a small business crafting bespoke furniture. His pieces gained attention for their quality and craftsmanship, and he enjoyed both the creative and entrepreneurial aspects of his work. Logan's social circle had expanded as well. He had reconnected with old friends and made new ones through various social events and community activities. He joined a local hiking club and took part in charity events, further integrating himself into his community. The relationships he cultivated were genuine and built on mutual respect and trust. During this period of rebuilding, Logan met Lisa. She was a fellow hiking enthusiast and a successful graphic designer. Their relationship began as a friendship forged through shared interests and mutual respect. As they spent more time together, it became clear that their bond was deepening. Lisa was supportive, understanding, and appreciated Logan for who he was. Their connection was based on genuine affection and shared values, which contrasted sharply with Logan's previous experiences. Logan and Lisa's relationship grew stronger over time. They enjoyed traveling together, exploring new destinations, and indulging in their mutual love of the outdoors. They took weekend trips to scenic locations, hiking trails, and charming small towns. Their weekends were filled with adventure and relaxation, providing a welcome contrast to Logan's past difficulties. In addition to personal happiness, Logan's career continued to flourish. His woodworking business expanded, and he gained a reputation for excellence in his field. He took on larger projects and began collaborating with interior designers and architects, further establishing his presence in the industry. The success of his business was a testament to his resilience and ability to turn adversity into opportunity. Logan's past, including his experiences with Amber, became a distant memory. He had learned from those experiences and used them to shape his future. The lessons he had learned about trust, respect, and self-worth were integrated into his current life. The sense of vindication he felt came not from acts of retribution, but from living a fulfilling and contented life. Amber, on the other hand, had receded into the background. Her attempts to reach out to Logan or regain semblance of her former life were unsuccessful. The consequences of her actions had left her in a position where she struggled to rebuild her own life. Her previous attempts to reconnect had been met with silence, and she had largely become a distant memory in Logan's life. Logan found peace in knowing that his life had moved forward positively. He had taken control of his circumstances and emerged stronger. His revenge was complete not through acts of cruelty, but by living well and finding happiness. The satisfaction came from knowing that he had achieved a better life and left the past behind, focusing instead on the bright future he had created. As Logan looked forward to the future, he was content with the choices he had made. His relationship with Lisa was one of mutual respect and love. His career was thriving and his personal life was fulfilling. The lessons from the past had guided him to a place of balance and contentment. Logan's life had transformed from one of pain and betrayal to one of achievement and joy, affirming that moving on was not just a possibility, but a reality he had embraced fully.